Well, we are literally just weeks away from a pivotal federal election. Each week we'll be joined by two key figures from either side of politics, member for Kingsford Smith, Labor's Matt Thistlethwaite, and from the government it is member for Mackellar, Jason Falinski. Welcome to you both.
Morning, Tim.
Now, look, we'll start on a very sobering note because we saw the death and the sudden death of Kimberly Kitchen, who was just 52 and a member, of course, of the Labor Party.
Yeah, it was shocking news, quite devastating for our party, and it sent shockwaves through the caucus. Kimberly was a brilliant policy mind, someone that did a lot of work around human rights victims and getting justice for them. And she was pivotal in the Magnitsky legislation getting up that Australia is currently using to target some of those Russian oligarchs. So she's not only a big loss for the Labor Party, but a big loss for the Parliament. Now, sympathies and condolences go to her family.
Absolutely. And Jason, politics is a tough game, but this is a terrible tragedy. We saw Shane Warne pass away at the exact same age last Saturday.
Yeah, look, I can only repeat what Matt just said. She was not afraid to tell truth to power, particularly when it came to human rights abuses around the world. And she really did shine a light on some very difficult situations that made a number of people in Canberra very uncomfortable. So we need more people like Kimberly in our Parliament.
Yeah, God rest her soul, and our thoughts are with her family and friends, of course. Now, turning to politics, how do you think Scott Morrison handled the floods?
Well, I think he handled it pretty appallingly, actually, and that was evident in the fact that he couldn't even walk down the street and talk to locals. I think that this government, unfortunately, sees climate change as a political weapon rather than a policy issue that needs to be solved. And as a result of that, they're seeking to weaponise the issue all the time, and we're not adequately preparing for the risk of climate change. And these extreme weather events are going to happen more and more. And I think it's been demonstrated that Australia hasn't invested enough in mitigation infrastructure to try and reduce the impacts upon communities and households. And that was evident in the fact that the Prime Minister couldn't even walk down the street. If the Prime Minister can't go out and talk to Australians, then perhaps it's time to give someone else a go.
Jason, the Prime Minister hasn't had a great run recently, whether it be in a hairdresser salon or various other places. Was he hiding to nothing in the floods and when he went up there?
Look, I think the fact of the matter is the Prime Minister went up there to hear the stories of locals. He wanted to do that behind closed doors so it didn't turn into a media circus. He did do that. I know that there are people on the left who use climate change as a slogan, who try to turn every human tragedy into a political opportunity by associating it with climate change. Matt is right. We haven't done enough adaptability in this country around our infrastructure. There was a plan to build a levee in Lismore about 10 years ago. The local council stopped it. That's not being talked enough about, because then other cities, when these adaptation plans come along, aren't getting to see, well, when Lismore opposed their adaptation plan, look what happened. And I think we need to be far more honest and far more upfront with the Australian people on these issues.
Well, these floods were just phenomenal, and I think every image that we saw, and our heart went out to every single person affected, not just those in Queensland and the northern parts of New South Wales, but Sydney, and particularly your seat, was rocked by what happened.
Yeah, my community is not unused to floods, especially around Narrabeen Lagoon. But the girls at Mackellar Girls High got to see a BMW go past their maths class, which was both exciting and terrifying for them. They were worried about what was going to happen. We had Manly Dam overflowing. We had every single major road in our community cut off. You couldn't, for about 2 hours there, you couldn't get in or out of the northern beaches. If you lived in the northern part of my community, Wakehurst Parkway, which the council has been given more money to study the problem than it would cost to fix it. Still, 10 years later, it's flooded 10 to 20 times a year, and that's the major arterial road to our hospital. These are examples of where we need to do a better job.
Now, turning to the Ukraine, lots of people watching our program this morning are scratching their head thinking, where's this going to end? How is it going to end?
Yeah, we certainly condemn in the strongest terms Putin and his forces and what they've been doing. That atrocious, evil attack on a maternity hospital this week, I think, just underscores what's at stake here. And it's encouraging to see the international community come together. There's enormous pressure on his government, and I think it is having an effect on the economy. Certainly interest rates have skyrocketed in Russia. The value of the dollar's fallen. The sanctions are getting worse and worse for them. But we need to find a way to get them to the negotiating table and try and get a ceasefire and get an end to this awful conflict, because no one's winning.
Your family came to Australia from war-torn Europe. It seems for many judges that the way that this will stop quickest if something happens in Russia and they get rid of Putin.
Look, there are no good answers here, Tim. Putin is not going to be replaced by a Democrat. So this is really tough. And my heart goes out to the brave people of Ukraine that are actually showing the resolve of Vladimir Putin is not what he claimed it to be. This is a clash of ideals going on at the moment. If the West does not assert itself here, then authoritarian regimes throughout the world will question our will to actually stand up for our values. That's why Ukraine matters more than ever.
Do we have to be a bit more careful with our rhetoric in and around China and what is perceived by some as sabre rattling?
Well, there's no doubt that under Xi Jinping, China's changed its posture. And that's deeply concerning for our region. And Anthony Albanese and the government have been condemning the Chinese government over the course of this week for their support of the Russian government during this difficult time. They haven't stood up in the UN Security Council. They're a permanent member. We'd like to see China do more. I think that it underscores the fact that we need to be ready in this region. And I think, regardless of who's in government, it's good to see that Australia has a bipartisan approach to China at the moment.
Shouldn't we tone down our language a bit with China, though? Shouldn't we be at the table more discussing this or trying to?
Well, Senator Kitching, if she was still here, but the point that she made over and over again in the parliament was you cannot reason with evil. You can't actually allow people to we have seen internment camps before in our history. We know where that ends. These are things that, as a liberal democracy that cares about the rights of individuals and the freedoms of people, needs to call out.
Okay, well, we're going to talk every week until the election. Very quickly, I'll give you 10 seconds and I want to change the subject to a softer subject. Why do you think you'll win?
Because I think the issues that Australians care about, they believe that we can better manage than the Labor Party.
Why do you think Anthony Albanese will be in the lodge?
I think it's time for a change. Cost of living, stronger action on climate change. These are all issues that people are talking to me about, and I think Labor's got a better offering.
Okay, finally changing the pace completely. You're both losers, aren't you? Manly lost. South lost.
Rabbitoh's got whacked, mate. Yeah. Not a good start to the weekend. I think we missed Adam Reynolds last night.
I think we missed a lot this week. But look, all I can say is I think we've got you right where we want you. We're just lulling people into a false sense of security.
Well, people were writing Des Hasler off last year and calling for his head, and his superstar got Dally M Player of the Year, and you almost had a tilt at the competition. Jason Falinski, Matt Thistlethwaite, thanks for coming in.